Hi there everyone, my name's Jan from JB Crafts and I'm back today with my next tutorial, and this one is for part of my Technique Tuesday series. I've been running these for a little while now, just showing you different techniques that you can use in your paper crafting, whether it be card making or any other range of crafting. But this is a really effective one today, very simple to do, using scrap paper again, which I am very much for. I have a ton of paper in my craft room, so anything that involves me to use scraps, absolutely a winner as far as I'm concerned. So it is called a starburst technique, and you can see that my paper all comes from a central point behind the sentiment, and it's all coming out towards the edge of my panel in that starburst fashion. And I'm going to show you how I've done that today. Now, I just picked a range of scraps from my teal section. I do keep all mine in colour order, and I do keep the solids and the patterns separate within that order. So yeah, they've got a big folder that they all live in, and I try and put all the pattern pieces at the front, and I always put some of the plain solid pieces at the back. And one of the things that I try and do, which again, top tip for you, is if they're a decent size piece of scrap, I do try and cut them down to a usable size. So for example, a 6x4 panel, a 7x5 panel, a square panel. I find that I actually use them more rather than just having lots of little bits of offcuts lying around. So yeah, that's how I actually store all mine, and I've just dug in there today, as I collected a selection of patterns, almost solids in there. The majority of them are patterns, and then I've actually backed it with a piece of solid of the same colour. So this is what we're going to make. I'm going to pop it to one side. Again, I've done sort of just a very simple inside, just a couple of the little scraps that were left just as a nod to that link to the outside. So I've got a birthday wishes on the front, sending lots of love, and I've just used a little bit of ink so that that panel stands off the background of the card. So yeah, that's what we're going to be making. So let's bring in some bits and pieces. You don't need much for this other than your scrap paper, and I've literally just used a little set of nesting dies to create my sentiment there. So yeah, we'll pop that over to one side, and I'll bring in some of the supplies that I've got. So this was actually done on a 7.5 by 5.5 card base. And again, I often work, I've said this before, I often work from my top panel here and then work backwards with my matte layers, and I do like to sort of stagger the sizes on the matte layers in order to end up with a finished card design. So once you see how this technique's done, you can actually make this different shapes. You could do it on a tall skinny card, you could do it on a square card, really simple to do. So I've made my own card blank. This is a piece of 7.5 inch by 11 inch smooth white cardstock, and I've just scored it down the centre at 5.5 inches. So we'll just reinforce that score line there so that that's nice and secure. And then I've brought in some matte layers. So I've actually taken a piece of the teal, which measures 7 1/8 by 5 1/8, and I've actually taken the centre out of this because teal along with pink are my two favourite colours to work with. So I tend to, you know, sort of be a little bit more frugal with that kind of cardstock, along with my luxury cardstocks like the matte gold, for example. And just, you know, this is not going to be seen. We're going to put another layer over the top of here. So that's my first layer. And then I've got a piece of craft card that measures 6 3/4 by 4 3/4 inches, and that is going to sit, and you can see I've got those sort of slightly it's going to have that staggered border because my next layer is actually a little bit wider. So we've got 1/8 of an inch borders so far, and then we're going to drop down to a little skinny border on the next layer. So I'm going to stick these down just to get these out of the way. We don't actually need to do anything else to these today. I'm going to stick them down, let them dry while we work on that focal piece. So I'm going to use my all-purpose glue. You know that I love this stuff, so whenever I'm working with just plain cardstock or pattern papers, this is my go-to. It just does the job, and I do like products that do the job, you know, sort of fit for purpose. It doesn't rustle any of your card like a PVA glue can do. Because this is a solvent-based glue, you don't get any of that ruttling. And by using a wet glue, it means that you can literally pop this down and then just wriggle it into position before that glue starts to cure and set. It dries very firm as well, this glue, so you get sort of, you know, sort of a nice rigid set of layers where the glue's dried in between. So we'll get that one on there, and again we can just drop it into place roughly and then maneuver it and make sure that all those layers are nice and even there. I've got the same border around the outside, and then I'm just going to leave that to one side now to actually dry while we make the rest of the design. So I've got another layer that I'm going to work with. Whoops. And this one's just a fraction smaller. So this is 6.5 by 4.5. And you might think, well, actually, you know, why are you putting craft card on top of craft card? But you'll see when I put all the design together why I've done that. And I'll explain why I've done that. So we're going to work on this piece with our Starburst. Now what I've done is taken my ruler and a pencil, and I've just sort of looked roughly whereabouts I want that central point to be. And it is only a rough guideline. And on my piece here, I've come in 2 inches from that left hand side, and I've also come in 2 inches from the top. And I've just made a little visual point with my pencil there as to where those pieces are going to finish. Now there may be a little bit of overlap in the middle, and that's okay. That doesn't matter. It's just all going to be hidden behind the sentiment. So yeah, it does sort of like act as a guide, but just gives me a focal point to work in. And then what I've done is I've been through my scrap drawer, and I've got a range of patterns that I actually want to use. So let's just have a look what we've got here. You can see they're all different lengths, and again I'll explain why I've done that. So I've got some little short ones, I've got some longer ones. You can see there, let's just pop those to that side. I've got a couple that are repeated. You know, I really like that pattern, and I wanted that to be quite a prominent part of the design. So yeah, lots of different scraps from different pieces. Some of them are double-sided, some of them aren't, you know. So this was actually from a piece of Christmas paper that I had filed in that teal section because it was predominantly teal, but this side was perfect for what I wanted to use today. So yeah, lots and lots of different bits and pieces. Now I happen to have got, I've written down the sizes of these for you, but a lot of it depends on the size of your starting piece. We're going to work straight onto this piece. Now you want to make sure that your longest pieces are going to come from that point that we made off the edge of your card. So the longest piece here, and these are actually 5.5 inches in length, which is slightly longer, so that when you go at the angle you've got that room to work with. And then we're going to snip off anything that hangs over the back of the card. All my strips are 1.5 inches wide. I found that was a nice size to work with to fit on that Starburst. So I've got sort of I've cut 3 at 5.5 inches by 1 inch. I've got a couple that are just 5 inch by 1 inch, because as you work your way round, obviously these don't need to be as long. This is the longest dimension from that point down to the bottom. So I've dropped down to 5 inches. I've got one that's 4.5, one that's 4, and a couple at 3 inches. So if I just bring in that guide there with this, that's what I've actually cut. There are probably more than what I need, but I'd rather have more than not enough and have to sort of go rummaging through the scrap bin again. So this is what I've cut. So that 5.5, the longest length, 3 of. I've got a couple at 5, just because they were smaller scrap pieces. You can cut these all to the same length if you wish. You can have them all at that long length. It's just not really necessary. If you think when we get up here, you know, that distance, even to the corner, is a lot less than what it is down here. But yeah, if you feel happier cutting these all to the same length, I would go with the longer length. But that is the array of shapes that I've got, and these are all at that 1.5 inches. So I'm going to pop that to one side and my piece of card to one side. We need to treat these to a little bit of work before we get started. So I'm going to bring in my guillotine. And I haven't prepped this because I wanted you to see them in their, you know, sort of original state. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut all of them from top left to bottom right, and I'm just going to quickly whiz through this on my guillotine. Now, I don't edit my videos, so if you're not bothered about watching all this bit, you can just fast forward through there. But I'm literally going to take them all from that top left corner, and I'm just lining them up on the edge of my guillotine here, and then I'm going to keep them back in their respective places. So again, top left to bottom right on the edge of the guillotine, and again we've got those good to go. So it creates you twice as many pieces, so you're getting sort of more for your money out of your scraps, and they're creating that shape that we need for that starburst. So each one, just going to work my way through them, and I'm doing exactly the same to each one. So like I said, if you want to sort of just flick through this bit until I've got them all ready, that is absolutely fine with me. I have considered editing the videos, but to be honest, I'm not sure that I need to at the moment. With the way that I work, I don't know whether I actually need to edit them yet. So there we go. And then just a couple of little ones. These are the shorter ones. The same cut each time to make sure that we're getting that same shape. And the last one there, like so. So that's all I need the paper trimmer for there. And we've got an array of pieces now that we're actually going to work with. Now, I'm not going to do this on camera because, again, it does take a little while. But I also used my ink to go around the edge of all the pieces. So I'll just do one of them to show you what I mean. And this is actually an opaque pigment ink from Spectrum Noir, which I love for the edging because it means I don't need an applicator. I've chosen parakeet, but because these are a foam piece on the ink pad, it means I can go direct to my paper there, and it does, you know, make this really, really quick. So I'll just do a couple of those patterned ones there, and all it is doing is just edging and giving a sort of a finish line on that design. I'll do just the 4 pattern pieces today. I've not done this square edge because we're going to cut some of that away. And this is where I get carried away because to me this just finishes off the design. I said I was only going to do those pieces, but this will show up more on those lighter pieces. You can just see how it draws the eye into that design there. So we'll do those couple of lighter ones. And then it's knowing, well, not knowing when to stop. I sat and did this with all of my pieces before I did the original panel, but you get the idea with it. So we've got those all good to go. So I'm now going to bring in my panel again, and I'm going to use my wet glue for this because I want a little bit of wriggle room. Now, how I've laid these down, you can see here that we've got those panels coming into the middle like so. And I've just got about, it's less than an eighth, I would say maybe a 1/16 of an inch of the craft card. Now you can put these all together like so. So one option is to actually pop them right up next to each other and create a solid pattern. That is one option. I just like that you've got that little bit of structure from the craft card, which is why I put the craft card underneath. I said I'd come back to that, and it makes it look as if it's been framed and these pieces come and join that edge. So that's where we're at with it. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to use my glue, and I'm going to hold these at the end, and I'm just going to add a little bit around the edges. I don't need a lot. I don't need to come even all the way to the bottom. I do need to make sure that that point is secure. And then we're actually going to work straight onto these. Now I'm just going to bring in my mat here so that I don't get glue on my work surface. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to aim roughly for that point that we made with the pencil, making sure that I've got enough cardstock to come all the way to the edge, and that's why we needed those longer pieces to get started. So there we go with that first one. Now I've got my right angle of that piece that we cut on this bottom corner, and you want to make sure that that's the same each time. So where we've cut them in half like this, when you rotate this, you will always have that right angled corner on that bottom edge. Okay, now I said I wasn't going to do them all, but looking at this now, I can't do it, guys. I love the ink. So I'm just very quickly, as I put these down, I'll leave the ink out. In fact, I don't even think I need the tweezers there. And we're literally just going to add just that little ribbon of glue there. And then we'll place the next one. So what I want to do now is not drop it, Jan. Well, that looks good, doesn't it? Let's hope we cover all that up. I'm going to lay this down at the side of it. And this is why the wet glue works so well, because I just want that little gap. I'll get my eraser out for that in a second and we'll deal with that. But yeah, just that little gap. And again, making sure that it comes all the way off this edge. And this is the bit that we're going to trim back into place. Now, if I just get my glue eraser, I can just deal with a little faux pas there, in the hope that none of that is going to... There we go. If you don't have one of these, they are magic. Again, readily available online, and they are called an adhesive eraser. It's a weird substance. I don't know what it's made of, but they are brilliant for exactly what I've just done there, removing any excess glue that's where it shouldn't be. Excuse me. So I'm going to follow my design that I did originally, and I can't not do the edges now. I thought I could, but I can't. So again, we're going to bring that glue in and just literally work our way around. Now you may start and get some overlap in that central piece, but I'm not worried about that. So I'm going to turn my piece as I go. I'm going to get this one in position and then just wriggle it. And I'm just doing it by eye, just to get that piece running down the centre there about the same distance away. And then we're going to come back to another one of that pattern, which I have already inked. And again, exactly the same. So lots of repetition again. But you'll see how this comes together. So again, lay it down into that same place. I'm aiming roughly for that same bit. And again, I'm trying to get about the same distance all the way down. So this is actually going to be covered with the sentiment, you know, a considerable portion of it. So don't worry if it gets messy up here. Okay, let's just grab my cloth there and get rid of some of this so that we don't all get stuck together. So the next one I've got on my sample there is one of the darker pieces. So again, I am sorry about the ink. The OCD, you know, it says that I can't just do some of them, even though that I've already got a finished sample. I have to do the same to all of them. So again, I'm going to come round here now, and again, I'm just leaving that same, just visualising that same distance so that it's running parallel. And you can see now how we're actually getting more overlap as we go around, because this distance is getting shorter each time. This is why it's great to work on the mat, because that glue just wipes straight off there and it's not a problem. So let's have a look. What else have we got? We're going to bring in one of the shorter pieces, I think, now, so we can start and go round. We'll go with that one. So again, just a little flick. You see now why those ink pads are so good for this purpose. It saves, it cuts out a stage of using the applicators. And again, that one's getting a little bit shorter now, so we'll just bring in the old tweezers as an extension of my fingers there and get that one in position. Okay. And then I'm going to bring in one of those little floral pieces, and again, I'm just going down those two long edges because we're going to trim the other side. Now this doesn't need as much glue because we're getting to those very short sort of areas now. So I'm going to go across here. And again, I've erred on the side of caution. You know, you can see those pieces might, you know, you could get away with them being much shorter. But again, I'm going to come up the other side now and work my way around to the top. So we're going to come up this side now. I'm going to come in with another one of those little dotty ones, like so. So again, we've got a slightly longer length on that one, so we're going to go further down. You can see why the wet glue comes in handy here. If you've not got the wet glue on them, you're not going to get that same amount of wriggle room when you position them. So once you're happy with it, you can commit to that stick. And then let's have a look. We'll go with another one of those dark blues to echo what's going off here. There's no right and wrong with the positioning. Whatever looks pleasing to your eye. And you can work with less patterns and repeat them more. You know, I've got lots of different patterns, but you can work with less pieces if you don't have the set, you know, that many pieces in a colour family. And we're going to bring that one in again, just focusing on that gap between it here and making sure it runs parallel. So then we're going to bring in, I think we'll go with one of those stripy, those checked ones there. Yep, so again, I don't need a massive amount because that length is getting shorter again, but I'd rather have, you know, the scrap to cut off than these come up short while I was doing my design. So again, this one's going to run parallel with that first one, and I've constantly all the way round got my rectangle on that left hand side, so they all fall into that sort of category there. So then we will go, I think, with that one. So again, I just need a little bit of ink on that bottom edge. This is only a shorter one again, so I know to about here, I reckon. Just a visual guideline with my finger there so that we're not getting glue all over the place. So this one again is just, I'm going to focus on that line here. And you can see now where we've sort of like gone a little bit off where the original point was, but my sentiment is going to cover all that, so don't worry about that. I'm going to keep going round, and let's have a look. We'll go with this one, I think, to go across the corner. So about there. Oh, we need a bit of ink, Jan. Nearly did. You'll all be laughing at me thinking, oh my goodness, where's she going with all the ink? Any of you that know me, guys, know that I love my inks. They come into most of my designs, even if it's only for this purpose, where we're actually inking the edges of something. There we go. So just make sure I keep cleaning up underneath so that none of this is actually sticking to where it shouldn't be. And then let's have a look. We're going to bring in a little bit of that pattern again, I think, just here. That one's got more of the teal in it there. So again, I only need a slight little bit here. And bring that one in. Like so. And then I'm going to have a look at the other side again, just to bring in and see what's happening over this side. So again, we'll go with that check piece in there, I think. And I actually want to cover up more of the card. So rather than bringing the point in and just having that little tiny triangle, I'm actually going to bring this one further in. So we can go about here, but I don't need to come all the way to the end. Like so. So again, I'm just focusing on that gap in between, and I'm just going to snip that point away, because this now is what's going to end up being underneath that central point where we're going to put the sentiment in. So we're nearly there. And then up at the top, let's have a look what we've got left. We've got, let's have a look. I've got this pattern left, and I have got the daisy print left. Yep, I think they'll look all right. So again, I just need a tiny little bit of this one like so. That one's going to go in here. And again, as long as you've got that line visible here, it doesn't matter about the overlap now, because we are literally going to cover, and that's the beauty of it. There probably is some science behind getting these better positioned, but I'm okay with it. And again, I'm going to bring that one slightly further in and just snip the corner off, so that I've got a bit more of that pattern there rather than just the little skinny point. And then take that bit off the end. See where that wet glue comes in there? And then the very last piece, I've just got a little point left that I can actually bring in there. Yep, so we'll just do that little tiny piece there in the gap, and we've got that space good to go. Okie dokie, so you can see I only had the one piece left. I've just got that one bit left, which is fine. I don't worry, I'm not too worried about that. We'll put the lid on the ink and get that out of the way. And then we've got our piece. You know, you think, my goodness, what on earth have you done, Jan? You know, it looks a right old hot mess. So we're just going to get rid of any excess glue off the back. And then what I want to do is bring in my scissors now. So we've done the work that we need to do. I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to start and trim with my larger scissors, just using that craft card as a guide to trim off all these pieces. So all the way around. Now you can use your paper trimmer to do this if you feel comfortable with it. I just like getting my scissors up to that cardstock, and it gives me a boundary to where I'm going to cut. When I've used my paper trimmer in the past, I've sometimes not quite gone straight and ended up readjusting this one, which you need to remain in the same sort of size. So again, all the way along, and you'll be amazed when we turn this over now what a difference it makes. So yeah, I have got some scrap pieces left now. You know, you've still got bits of scraps. Now it depends how precious you are about the scraps. You can save them. You know, any pieces that are still, you know, large enough to do something with, you can keep. You know, you may want to punch flowers out of them and save them that way, or punch butterflies. But just look now at that reveal when you get this going. All right, so again, I'm just going to put all mine to one side for now. I'll deal with those later. So you can see there, we've got that lovely arrangement of patterns. And then what I've done is I've just used a little die set here that's got some nesting dies in. So it's got a scallop and a stitch circle there. So I'm literally gone for the craft card. And then I've just stamped my sentiment in black ink on here. And all of a sudden, everything that's happening underneath becomes less obvious. So that's where we're going to head with it. Now, just because I've used it all the way around now, I have to cover those raw edges that we've cut. So again, you know, this is an optional stage. You don't have to go with the inks if you don't want to. It looks just as nice. But I do like that finishing touch with the ink there. So I'm going to bring back in my glue. I am going to bring back, we'll move the mat now, we don't need that anymore. I'm going to bring back in my card blank that we created, and this one now is going to sit on here, and that last piece that we place, the craft card, now completes the frame, because all these little areas that we left open now reach out to that craft card frame. So I am keeping all this flat today, apart from a little bit of dimension on the sentiment. So this would be a great one, you know, if you're wanting to post your design and you're wanting to keep it reasonably flat. You could bring this layer up on foam if you wished. But again, as I say, I've got this all nice and flat. Get that one stuck down onto that craft card panel. And then we're going to address this one. So again, I'm going to stay with that same glue. It does the job that I need it to do, so why would I change it? And then I'm going to make sure that anything that's untidy up here, I am actually just going to try and cover with my sentiment piece there. So this is the sort of saviour for where it all comes in. It almost looks a bit like a camera lens as well. That one's going to go on there. I am going to treat this one just to a little tiny touch of that ink to bring it all together all the way around the edge of that die cut, and it just links it all together. And then I think I'll have some foam squares at the side of me here. So all I'm going to do is actually put some of these on the back of here. It doesn't necessarily need a lot. I'm just going to go with, I think, 4 on the back. Now they're a different size, Jan, so those are obviously some that were left from a previous sheet. So I need to find another one of those. That will do the job. And put that one in there. Right, take the backers off. And I always add a little bit of glue to this just as an insurance. And I'm going to go back to that white PVA, especially going onto the craft card, because that is very, very sort of fibrous. And then again, we'll get this in position. Just make sure that it's nice and straight to read my greeting, and then apply that to the background there. So you can see now we've covered up that particular technique in the background. We've covered up where all the technique joined, and you've got that lovely starburst effect on your card, which was our technique today. Now, the only thing that I did different on my sample, of course, was add a little bit of bling. Again, you know, those of you that know me know that my cards are not finished without that little bit of bling. So an odd number just scattered around the sentiment. I didn't want any on the design. I didn't want to distract the eye from that starburst. I've just put them on that central point with the sentiment. And then, like I said, I've got a piece inside, and this one measures the 5x7. Yep, so it's just a 5x7 mat, which leaves me a little bit round the edge. I've used the same ink around the edge of it to keep it all in line. A couple of the little pieces that I had left over that were scraps, I've just cut into, and I've actually just linked that to the front of the card, and we've got our design for today. So that's Sunburst Technique. I hope you've enjoyed it. I love it if you're going to have a go at it. Let me see the designs that you've done. You can find me on Facebook at JB Crafts as well. I know lots of you have been popping your designs on there. Love to see what you've been doing with them. Love to see them. You know, you've done them in different colorways, different pattern papers, things like that, and they all look so different. But yeah, glad that you're enjoying the videos. Please consider giving it a thumbs up, and you know, if you'd like to subscribe to the channel, go for it. I have got lots more ideas to bring you, and I will be back very, very soon with my next tutorial. So bye bye for now.